Welcome back to the channel, y'all. Today we're back in Final Fantasy Tactics, and today we're going to be making a build for Cidolfus Orlandeau. And I'm not going to lie, making a build for Cid is a little difficult just because baseline Cid, once you get him, he's essentially just
perfect. Everything, down to the last minute details.
But we're going to do our best, and I'm going to throw in some additions that maybe some of you veteran players of Final Fantasy Tactics haven't really considered synergizing with Cid, so that should be a lot of fun. Now, if this is your first time with the channel, I really appreciate a rating below, and yeah, let's go ahead and get started with the video. And let's actually start off with a brief history of Count Cidolfus Orlandeau, also known as the Thunder God. When we first see Cid in the story, he is the commander of the Order of the Southern Sky. That is the military faction that works with Duke Goltana and the Council. Now, it is well known that Cid is an absolute monster on the battlefield, and he is a hero of the 50-year war, having never lost a battle during that conflict. And needless to say, Cid is essentially a living legend. And this is a rare occasion in gaming when you actually get a character of this renown, and they come out the gate just as powerful as their reputation.
Power thrumming in skies above, as the refulgent blade now strike! Hallowed bolt!
And the last thing I want to note is Cid's zodiac sign, which he is a Scorpio. I'm actually a Scorpio, so that's pretty cool. But he has strong positive affinity with both Cancer and Pisces, and then a negative affinity with Leo and Aquarius. And lastly, his best affinity is shared with a Taurus. So for example, a character that Cid has really strong affinity with is actually Agrias, because her zodiac sign is Cancer. Now let's talk about what makes Cid so deadly and one of the best characters in the game. His raw stats. He has high HP and high physical attack. And his skill set from his Sword Saint job, he has all of the Knight Sword abilities, not just Holy Knight. So you have Agrias' Holy Knight, you know, Judgment Blade, Hallowed Bolt. Those are all really good. He also has the Templar Knight Swords as well. So he can crush armor, crush helm, accessory. He can destroy everybody's equipment from range 100% of the time, unless they have something like Safeguard on as a reaction. Additionally, he has the Dark Knight Swords as well. So he has Duskblade and Shadowblade. These are from Gafgarian. And really the only thing he's lacking here is speed. But he's got that covered as well because he comes with Excalibur, which gives him permanent speed. So he's got speed covered, high HP, high physical attack, and again, all these Knight Swords, they are based off your physical attack. He gets to wear the same equipment as Knights, so he can have a shield, heavy armor. He is just the absolute package as soon as you get him. That's why it's like, yeah, do you really even need to build out Cid? The answer is no. He is perfect just the way he is, but we are still going to make him even better. Now switching over to a build for Cid. As soon as you get Cid, I would build him out to be something like this. I would just simply give him item, and that's mainly just to pick up potion. This is going to help him grind levels because he doesn't come with something like accumulate from a squire job. He doesn't have access to that. And then I would give him something like Phoenix Down because he can kind of be your ace in the hole when it comes to reviving the party because he's not going to die himself. He will probably be the last man standing, so having Phoenix Downs available to him, not a bad idea. Other than that, if we're already going to be on Chemist for those two, just for having Potion and Phoenix Downs, Auto Potion, really safe option. We're already going to have a high health pool, and it's going to be really hard for people, again, to kill Cid here. Your support ability, attack boost. This will bump up your physical attack, again, synergizing with our swordplay abilities. Really simple, really easy. And then movement, just your best movement ability. From the actual Sword Saint job, you'll have movement +1, but you might as well start creeping into Thief because we're going to want to make our way to Ninja. And you'll see why for a more, I would say, end game type build. You can totally take this kit here and this is perfectly fine for the entire game, but again, we're going to take it a step further with a little bit more JP grind. Now this would be a more, I would say, even more overpowered version of Cid once you've grinded out some JP, maybe you've done the deep dungeon. But starting off here, Iaido from Samurai, you don't necessarily need to take Iaido. In fact, your secondary job, not that important for Cid because his swordplay abilities are what you're going to be doing 99% of the time. So secondary job, fill in for whatever you want. I have as Iaido here just because you can get some additional buffs. You can give your other allies something, you know, as far as like regen or even haste if you have some higher tier katanas. But reaction ability here, Shirhodoi, this is kind of a staple but you could change this out with something like Mana Shield, especially with the Mana Shield Mana Font combination. I recommend that for essentially every build because it helps you tank something like a Zodiac Blast from the end of the Deep Dungeon. Auto Potion, you could keep that on. Regenerate, sure. Critical, recovery HP. Yeah, those are all good. Your support ability here, Dual Wield, and that's mainly because you can hold 2 Night Swords. So we're getting permanent haste from Excalibur, and then from the Chaos Blade, not only can it petrify enemies just from, hitting them, but this will give us a permanent regen as well. So we're always just, getting our health back. And we have a high health pool, which means we're going to be regenerating even more health because that percentage is based off your max HP when it comes to regenerate. I have, as far as equipment, we'll get that for a second. Let's go back to our movement, and really it's just your best movement. I have Bard on my Cid here, so movement +3, teleport, movement +2 is honestly fine as well. But let's move on over to our equipment. I'm putting on the Thieves Cap just to give us even more speed, just ridiculously fast. And then for our chest piece, we can use any chest piece for Cid here. And you might be thinking, why wouldn't you go with one of the plates? You could, absolutely, especially because it'll bump our HP up to something even bigger, something like 753. That's really good. But I'm not really worried about Cid dying, and the power garb here is going to give us +2 to our attack power, our physical attack power. That's kind of hard to pass up. We're really just stacking on a lot of physical attack power. Same with our accessory choice here, which is the bracers, which gives us +3. So 5 total just between these 2 pieces of equipment, and our physical attack is sitting at 23. I haven't done any de-leveling with him. This is just a pure 90 for Cid here. So this would be, I would say, a very safe bet. But for the gameplay section, this is where I was going to put a little twist on it, a little something to consider. What if instead, for our reaction ability, we took something like Vanish instead? And I think this works beautifully for Cid, truly making him unstoppable because he has such a high HP pool, and we have the Chaos Blade, and it works really well with our swordplay abilities. Again, I'll show that off more in the gameplay section, which we will get to in a second, but I also want to mention here that you don't need to actually use dual wield. If you want to just stick with attack boost, again, bumping up our physical attack even more, that works completely fine as well. I just like having dual wield because, again, these Night Swords, best weapons in the game, kind of hard to argue with that. But this setup here, let's move to the gameplay section. We'll try to get a difficult fight because I want to show you how this whole kit works together, and really the secondary job, not that important. But let's get to that gameplay section. We're here at Finnith Creek, and I want to say, oh yeah, this looks like a worthy set of monsters and some enemies, some humanoid enemies to go up against. Now, I also want to note, as far as Cid's gear, I know something like, let's look at the Lordly Robes, also extremely good. These will give you permanent protect and shell. There's just a lot of options as far as gear, as far as swapping things in and out. I feel like the only thing that I would say like is a must pick is Excalibur, really just for haste. So even if I was just using one-handed sword, I might not take the Chaos Blade because permanent haste is just so good, very iconic with Cid here. But just know I'm not like disregarding the fact that there are other pieces of equipment you can use. In fact, I see some oracles over there and they do some status effects. I'm wondering, in fact I will, I'll change this out for ribbon. So anything they throw at me, not gonna happen. They're not gonna be able to disable me or anything like that. But let's go with this setup here. I kind of just want to take the secondary job off just so you can see that I don't really need it, but we'll keep it on. Let's get the fight started. The only thing that's a little concerning is maybe that black chocobo. Because unless they can one-shot us, this is already game over. Oh, you know what? We get the first turn because our speed is so high. Now, we can see our submergible there is 1, meaning we are fine to go in there. And let's just take off their biggest threat to us. Hello Bolt is always just so powerful, and when we stack so much physical attack, we're just gonna one-shot everything. Oh, poor Chocobo. I forgot what that sounded like. Now let's see what these oracles, or mystic, sorry. The original game was oracles. These are mystics. And they're just gonna drain my life. That's gonna trigger Vanish for us. I want one of them to hit me. Somebody's gotta hit me, right? Go ahead, do some damage to me. That's fine. And I think because they're spells, they're not going to trigger Vanish. So you know what? These oracles are actually pretty worthy foe. But again, Cid, we are covered because we have something called Shadow Blade, which means we're going to go ahead and get all of our life back. And kind of spoiling what I wanted to do with him is I want him to get hit. And that way we vanish, meaning the enemies won't target us. And then while we're invisible, not only are we regenning, but when we pop back out of invisibility, we can use Shadow Blade and just get all of our health back. And then rinse and repeat. So right now, we just lost 162 health. Now we're invisible. They don't know what to do. Now our regen is going to give us some health back passively, but we can just use Shadow Blade right out the gate. Our health is back. We delete a very powerful foe, or, you know, our highest priority target. That guy's still alive. Did he have... Hang on. He had Mana Shield. I love it when the humanoid NPCs have some semblance of a build. And this guy here, he just took one right to the face. And that's why Mana Shield is very powerful, by the way. But he doesn't have any more mana left, meaning... And we didn't break our stealth because we didn't do any health damage. Oh, no, we did. Sorry. I misspoke there. It was just the turn order. But yeah, I love it when the humanoid enemies have an actual build. And that is definitely one critique you could, you know, throw at tactics here is the humanoid enemies, most of the time, they don't really have a build. But now, okay, now let's go ahead and finish this guy off like we are intending to. Go ahead and use Shadow Blade. 644 damage. There's not a lot of things that are going to be able to survive against that. And so boss enemies, as long as they just hit Cid, will go vanished. Won't be able to see him. You know what? If we actually kept on item, we would always basically be a really good source of reviving our teams in those like more difficult fights, I would say. So Cid really is just, he's unstoppable. Even though these Mind Flayers did a lot of damage to us, or these demons, I don't think these variants are the actual Mind Flayers, but even though they did a good bit of damage to us, doesn't matter. This Shadow Blade combination is just, it's so deadly. And Cid is the only one in your party that can do this sort of combination. Because this isn't the War of the Lion version, or War of the Lions version. We don't have Dark Knight as a job. So it's just Cid who can do this. But you're also seeing that this is why this build can also work with just using a shield in a sword instead of doing 2 Knight Swords. Because, you know, we're not really using the Chaos Blade for anything other than its really high attack power, which is a really good option. But you can get away with the Excalibur. That's why I said the Excalibur is probably my favorite out of the 2. Because it's just going to keep us at a really high turn order, because we're really fast. Break our invisibility, they're going to hit us again. And this is just rinse and repeat. Now we did this similar build, or something similar with Vanish for Archer. And we kind of made a Gloomstalker. But it's even better with Cid, because we don't need to wait around. So we could wait around. And we're going to get a little bit of life back. And then you could put on Life Font to kind of double up on the HP that you're recovering. And that's really good. But we don't need to mess around with any of that with Cid here because of Shadow Blade. And we just get everything back. It's kind of easy. A little too easy. I mean, Cid is just so overpowered anyways. This build here, kind of just another way that he is overpowered. Another way you can build him out. It's really hard to mess up building out Cid. He's so good. Is he the most powerful character in the game? Arguably, yeah. But I think there's 2 other characters that are kind of on par with him, and we will eventually do character builds for them as well. But yeah, we made that look very easy, and we kind of had an unstoppable routine or rotation with Cid here. But anyways, y'all, that is the build, that is the video. Cid, he's an absolute monster. And this is just I would say a different way to play him. This is a way that I haven't seen many people talk about. Vanish is a reaction ability that doesn't get as much credit as I think it's deserved. But anyways, y'all, that is the video. If you made it this far, I appreciate the hell out of you. And I'll see you next time. Peace and take care.